At this time, you should have finished the introduction video and the 3-minute OOTK run-through. Now we'll get started on the first operation. In the Kabbalah, there are 4 spiritual or metaphysical realms derived from the Godhead or divinity. The world of fire opens the world of air, active worlds. Fire opens water again, air opens earth. Now you have the 4 worlds. The 3 cuts you make with the tarot deck mimic the 3 acts of God that created the 4 worlds. The 3 cuts mimic the 3 holy derivatives or the Trinitarian principle of creation that is the cornerstone principle in the Kabbalah. So here's how you open the 4 worlds. Shuffle the deck. Paul Foster Case instructs on cutting the deck, but that's really up to you whether or not you cut with your shuffles. Then there is a very specific way to open the 4 worlds into 4 card piles. Start by placing the shuffled deck to the rightmost edge of your workspace, then cut over from fire to air. These are the active elements, the creative and destructive energies, wands and swords. Okay, now it's your turn to cut the deck. In the video, I am doing it backwards so that you can copy my direction. Follow the direction as you see it. Next, fire begets water, the first passive element to be created, active to passive, from Adam to Eve. The third and final cut is from air to earth. Again, an active element begets the passive element, swords to pentacles. Now you have opened the 4 worlds, and as above, so below, we have the 4 elements, the 4 directions, and the 4 suits of the minor arcana open before you. The 4 worlds also corresponds with IHVH, the tetragrammaton that spells out the name of God. These 4 worlds, the 4 elements, the 4 letters of God, represent 4 quadrants of human life. All matters of human existence can be expressed by one of these 4 worlds. Now recall the significator card you selected, written down on page 6. Starting with the first world for fire, start sifting through the 4 card piles in search of your significator card. Here, I'll be searching for the Queen of Swords. The card pile or Kabbalistic world that your significator card is located in is going to correspond with the area of life, the quadrant of human existence that is most pertinent to you at this time. This is the theme of your question, or the theme you need to focus on right now in your life path. Here, my significator, the Queen of Swords, was located in the Earth pile, H2, the active world. This is the material plane. H2, the material plane, relates to matters relating to money, business, property, basically finances. According to this divination so far, the area of life to focus on is material. It's about resources, assets, money matters, security. Okay, now record your first operation results in your workbook. Turn to page 10 and mark the box corresponding with the card pile you found your significator card in. Also note the topmost card of your pile. Jot it into the box provided. Here I wrote King of Wands. If you want, you can also record the topmost cards of all of the open piles. Okay, now let's review the first operation so far. You cut the cards into 4 piles, I, H, V, H, for the opening of the 4 worlds. Then you sift through the card piles in search of your significator card. Right to left, the world of fire represents work, the physical plane that's related to the suit of wands, work, career, health, wellness. This can all be the physical body, personal identity. The world of water relates to the emotional plane, love, relationships, home and family, the domestic, internal sphere. The world of air, or the social plane, relates to the suit of swords, relates to the external plane, the social self, the community relations, ambitions and glory, and basically communications, how we engage, interact, and the dialectic. Finally, we have the world of earth, the material plane. That's money matters, assets, financials, and basically our security and resources. Card counting. Still on the first operation, we pick up that card pile our significator was in, and respecting the order of the cards, carefully separate the pile into 2 parts, the cards in front of your significator and then the pile with your significator on top. Move the front pile to the back so that the pile with the significator is now on top. In the OOTK, never change the order of the cards as they appear. Don't worry, we haven't changed the order at all. What we did here was shift perspective. Let me explain. Let's illustrate with this linear progression of rainbow cards. You know the order of the rainbow, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. We want to preserve that order. If you rearrange the rainbow cards into a circle from linear to cyclic, you haven't changed the order of the cards. The progression, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple, stays the same, but now the progression diagram is cyclic rather than linear, but the arrangement has not changed. A linear diagram of the cards with yellow first, then green, blue, purple, then red and orange has maintained the order of the cards. We have not changed the order, but we have shifted perspective. The shift of perspective went from red to yellow, and this linear diagram is the same as the previous linear diagram because the linear is the cyclic. In your card pile, you're shifting perspective, but not shifting the order of the cards. You're shifting perspective from topmost card to significator. Why? Remember our earlier discussion on the significator card. We want to use the significator as the anchor, the magnet that has pulled the cards most relevant to your life path toward you, your significator. The rainbow cards diagram what you just did. This is also a mimicking of the space-time continuum that appears linear to us but is cyclic and reminds us that what appears from one perspective as a single line is also in reality a unit circle, and that unit circle remains unbroken, the same, objective, the ultimate truth, no matter which perspective you shift to, whether it is the red card or yellow card, the topmost card or your significator. What else does the circle to line diagram remind you of? How about the cycle of the 4 seasons, diagrammed in the astrological chart of the sun moving through the 12 zodiac signs every year? The movement of the cards you just performed mimics the cycle of seasons, the sun's ecliptic through the 12 zodiac signs. And while it is a cycle, a circle, at any given point in that cycle, you feel like time is linear. You feel like you're on a line because time feels linear to us humans from our perspective. Okay, so now we begin card counting. You have your card pile with the significator now on top, having shifted perspective in that line to cycle to line metaphor for space-time. Now you are ready to invoke God through Kabbalah-based numerology. The numerical assignments here are based on Kabbalistic texts, and I've provided study guides in your course materials to explain all of this in detail, where each of these numbers come from. After all, never ever follow blindly. Always know why, and I've given you the why in the study guides. In the interest of time, however, let's talk about card counting. Start by identifying the numerical assignment for your significator card. I'm using the Queen of Swords as an example, so turn to your workbook on page 13. The Queen is assigned the number 4, representative of the 4 worlds in Kabbalah, and so now I set all the cards in my pile into a circle, beginning with the Queen, and count to 4. 4 counts over from the Queen, we land on the 9 of Cups in reverse. Before beginning the card counting procedure, you first need to figure out which direction to count in. Sorry, I should have mentioned that sooner. Follow along with me on page 12 of the workbook. Start by noting whether your card seems to face right or left. If the card is right-facing, like the King of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite-Smith, then you set your cards down clockwise. If your significator seems to be left-facing, like the Queen of Cups here, then set your cards down counterclockwise. Even if there is no figure or the figure depicted does not clearly face a particular direction, note whether the balance and weight of the significator card imagery seems to go left or go right. That will be the card's direction. If you're following Paul Foster Case, go right for the Magician, and for the High Priestess, set the cards down leftward. So what is the implication of counting the significator card as count 1? Let me see if I can illustrate. Bear with me here. Including the significator, including you in the count, is looking at the picture as if you are part of the picture. You're looking at yourself as almost an out-of-body experience, if you will. Imagine you are that figure in red in this drawing. You are also you right now, the one situated where you are in real time, watching this video from outside the screen. You are watching you. That's what it means to count the significator card as count 1. Now, what if you don't count the significator and start 1 card over? Same imagery as before here, except different point of view. Remember that red figure? That red figure was you, right? The little red things at the bottom there are your hands. To not count the significator means the significator, you are looking outward, and the landscape, you are not part of the landscape. That's right, you are now not part of the landscape. You're looking outward. The significator is looking out. Therefore, the perspective has shifted. You see less of some things and you see more of other things. Here is a side-by-side comparison. When you count the significator as 1, you are the top illustration. You are part of the landscape. You are a relevant force, a relevant influence out of the many factors at play. You are a factor at play. When you do not count the significator, you are the bottom illustration. You are looking at the landscape, but you're not part of it. And the purpose of divination is for you to see what other forces are around you that you want to be aware of. You are looking out at the other factors at play. Even if you are a factor at play, you're not looking at that right now. You're just looking at everything else. Now, in the actual cards, here is what these theories look like. Assuming the King of Pentacles is a significator card, and per page 13 of your workbook, the King is count 4, 4 counts over, counting the King as 1 is the Hierophant. If you do not count the significator, then 4 counts over is the 7 of Pentacles. Counting you as an influential factor, one relevant point of note will be interpreted out of the Hierophant. The Hierophant will be key. Taking yourself out of the equation just to look at the extenuating circumstances around you, then we're not looking at the Hierophant anymore because we're not considering you, and therefore we need to look at other. Under this theory, the 7 of Pentacles is a critical message. When your intent for divination is inclusive of what your actions and conduct do to the situation, then in this scenario, the Hierophant answers your question. When your intent for divination is to see what's going on beyond you and you don't want to consider yourself as a factor, then under this scenario, the divinatory reply is in the 7 of Pentacles. The message of the Hierophant is for the one who sees himself out of body, who wants the bird's eye omniscient view. The message of the 7 of Pentacles is for the one who sees himself as a character in the play, who is taking a first-person point of view. Okay, back to our original hypothetical. Queens are 4. 4 counts over is the 9 of Cups in reverse. The pip card 9 is count 9, and 9 counts over is the Page of Wands. The Page of Wands is count 7, so we count 7 over, and now we land on the 6 of Cups. The 6 of Cups is count 6, we count 6 over, and now we land on the 10 of Pentacles. The 10 of Pentacles is count 10, counting 10 over, we land on the Queen of Swords, which was our significator card. When you land on your significator or a card you previously counted, then that's when you know to stop the counting and your selection of cards by counting is complete. Now it's your turn to give it a try, so pause the video and try the card counting procedure. Read page 15. Note how I am recording each count on page 15 and how that table is provided in blank form on page 16. It's your turn now to fill out the table on page 16. Please pause the video. The next step is to read the narrative. This is an intuitive reading. Collect all the marked cards from card counting to form the narrative. There are 2 approaches to this, which you will have read about on page 17 of your workbook. If you haven't already, pause the video and read page 17, then proceed. The counted cards form a narrative that you are now to read intuitively. Case and Mathers say to tell a story from the string of cards. On page 18 of your workbook, I deconstruct for you what that means and give you it in analytical terms. First, scan the cards for a sign or symbol that intuitively triggers an emotion. In the narrative example given, let's say I'm reading for someone, a Queen of Swords. So I'd say, you feel. Despite having much material abundance in your life, you seem dissatisfied. You're reaching a point of apathy or ennui where achievements, luxuries, and privilege feels meaningless. You feel lost in adulthood and you're pining for childhood, for who you were once when you were a child. It's that little girl you miss. You feel apathy right now. Then scan the cards for thoughts. What thoughts do you hear out of the cards? Look for signs and symbols that evoke sound in your psychic ear. You can start your divination with you think if you hear the thoughts as the querent's thoughts, or just say what you hear. I hear the voice of a young girl, for example. Let's say I'm looking at this string of narrative. I hear the voice of a young girl, very energetic, fiery, and creative, and an interest in the occult. Now, I'm getting that from the Page of Wands, and the interest in the occult was derived from the black salamanders on the tunic. I hear this young girl wanting to be heard. She's crying out at you, trying to be heard over the current abundance and good life you've established for yourself up to this point. She's why you're unhappy or dissatisfied, I think. The Six of Cups is the thought, the contemplation of returning to embrace that Page of Wands, that energetic, fiery, creative side from youth, and maybe even an endeavor into occult studies. Look again at the narrative before you, and now scan the cards for something related to the status quo, the present, to ground the reading. For example, here I might say, you are currently working for a family business, but there are talks about you being the one who takes it over. In fact, would you be the first woman to lead this business that's been in your family for a few generations now? Quick side note, for those who are familiar with what we call the textbook meanings of these cards, even what I write out in the encyclopedia section of my book, Holistic Tarot, you can see that I'm really taking just one seed of classical meaning and running, well, wild or intuitively with it. Needless to say, the Queen of Swords plus Ten of Pentacles doesn't always mean a woman who is about to take over a male-dominated family business. But in this specific case study, guess what? It did. That's what it means to read intuitively, and also how to read a story from the cards per Mathers and Crowley. The final prompt expressing intuitive reading through an analytical framework is what I call visionary projection, and this is number 4 on page 18. Visionary projection means seeing beyond the signs and symbols of the cards through your third eye. Let the two-dimensional imagery on the cards be the bridge between you and your third eye, a bridge between consciousness and superconsciousness. So, for example, I tend to use the final card in a string for visionary projection. Here, that's the Six of Cups. So I might say something like, I see someone from your past, probably male, coming back into your life, someone you've known for a very long time already, but you will get to know again in a very different light. Perhaps the summer fling. Perhaps the summer fling gives you a glimpse of true happiness, and it makes you even more apathetic toward the career path, it seems, that your family has chosen for you or on your behalf or prescribed for you. And even though every other person in this world might kill for the same opportunities you've had, I mean, what this person represents might just be the offer you can't refuse, to use a cliche. But yeah. Okay, card pairing. You remember earlier I was saying that our perception of something that is linear, like time, is in fact cyclic. And the easiest way for us to intuit that is through the 4 seasons and the ecliptic of the sun. But beyond that, even in quantum theory, time can be thought of as cyclic, and it is only our perception of time that gives it the sense of linearity. Card pairing is a way for you to rearrange linearity, that narrative you had read as a line, to compel you to understand events as non-linear. Card pairing is how the divine or God communicates to you to reveal to you the non-linear patterns in what you have been perceiving as linear all along. That's the metaphysical theory of card pairing. Here's how you do it. The first card in the narrative is paired with the last. The second card is paired with the second to last. And you continue until every card is paired off or you have a single odd card out. Now please read page 19 and fill out the table at the top of page 20. Okay, one more time. First card in your narrative paired with the last card. Second card paired with the second to last card. And continue that way. Here the example result has even pairs, but don't worry if you have an odd card out. Let's do an example with odd cards. Here I'm using the Tarot de St. Croix. First card with last, second card with second to last, third card with third to last, and here I have a single odd card. Odd cards, by the way, are considered the most important in the narrative. Once the cards are paired off, read the cards for their elemental dignities so you understand those nonlinear forces driving the perceived linearity. Here is an easy way to remember elementals. Actives are always good together. Passives are always good together. It's like high school, self-segregation, cliques by similarities. An active is always in conflict with a passive, and the active-passive pairs in conflict are based on the ones that create each other back during the opening of the four worlds. If you recall, fire begot water, active to passive, they conflict. Air to earth, active to passive, they conflict. Notice the alchemical symbols. When the triangles point in the same direction, they strengthen and amplify. When triangles point in opposite directions, they weaken and conflict. Also notice how the two triangles with the lines go together and the two opposite triangles without the lines go together. So now let's read the elemental dignities in our sample card pairing. Recall that the Page of Wands paired with the Six of Cups. Fire and water weaken and conflict. Note how the points of the triangles point in opposite directions and they are similar triangles. That means the implications of these two cards in the Seeker's life will cause obstacles, struggle, and that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It just means that there's dynamic energy here. There's flux and struggle, oppositional forces at play. In plain English, that guy from her past is going to come into her life and throw a curveball, shake her back down to her foundations, and compel her to rebuild in a different direction. Now we have the Ten of Pentacles and the Nine of Cups in reverse. Pentacles is earth and cups is water. Earth and water are both passive. The points of the triangles of their alchemical symbols point in the same direction. These forces strengthen and reinforce each other. Pressures from that family dynasty reinforce this woman's unhappiness. Here are the elemental correspondences for the major and minor arcana, but no need to try to copy the table down into your notes. You will have it among your reference guides provided with the course material. Now let's practice those elemental dignities. It's a big deal in the OOTK, so you need to know this stuff. Wheel of Fortune, paired with the Ten of Swords. Interpret it through card pairing and elemental dignities. Go. The Wheel of Fortune is fire, and the Ten of Swords is air. Fire and air, noting that the points of the triangle are in the same direction, strengthen and support. As you might be able to intuit from the imagery of the cards, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. In fact, it means tough luck up ahead and a very strong concentrated cocktail of tough luck. Let's try another one. Four of Wands and Knight of Pentacles. Four of Wands is fire, Knight of Pentacles is earth. Notice that the tips of the triangles go in opposite directions, but they are not the same type of triangles. So no issue here. Fire and earth are neutral. These two forces in the Seeker's life aren't bothering the Seeker at this time. Now you read the cards by meaning. In the OOTK, how you read the pairs will depend on what the card pile result was from the opening of the four worlds. You read the cards through the themes noted by the four worlds. Whatever the theme, here we see stability, equilibrium, but maybe a plateau and a future pending need to figure out how you'll advance to the next step of your life path and get off that plateau. I mean, even in a relationship reading, the Knight of Pentacles, right, is like that Mr. Nice Guy who finishes last. He does everything right, probably works in accounting, but just boring. The High Priestess and the Eight of Cups. That's water and water. In the OOTK, water and water strengthen and reinforce each other. It's a form of validation, a synchronicity when the elements repeat. But generally, when reading elemental dignities, the same element on the same element, for me, is not notable unless something else stands out about the pair. What about the High Priestess and the Ace of Pentacles? Water and earth. Both are passive elements. Both tips of the triangles point down. This pair strengthens, amplifies, and reinforces each other. Before continuing to the second operation, review the workbook pages for the first operation. Take a look at the applicable study guides and quick reference sheets. Practice just what you've learned so far a few times and record your practice sessions in the log. It's amazing how accurate you'll realize your readings are post facto when you revisit the logs and review old readings later on, so I always recommend that you keep a journal. Try out the first operation as a complete reading for yourself or for someone else. Email me. I'm here. I'm here to listen to you. So definitely tell me about your trials, your impressions, your thoughts. Our coverage of the first operation may seem a bit extensive, but we're developing divinatory techniques you'll use in later operations and maybe even integrate into your personal metaphysical practice. Card counting, how to read narrative strings of cards, card pairing, and elemental dignities are all fundamental tarot skills to have in your portfolio.